Welcome back, and more now on stopping the spread. Public schools will now do COVID testing weekly. This in the hopes of preventing necessary quarantines. Now, Brooklyn council member and chairperson of the City Council's Committee on Education, Mark Traeger, joins us this evening to discuss what the latest is here in the city. Councilmember, thank you here for being with us once again.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, look, let's talk about testing. As we said, the mayor announcing the return to weekly testing. This is something the teachers union called for on Sunday. Is this enough, or are there still some holes in the testing policy?
I think we took a small step forward on testing, but overall, a couple steps backward in overall safety, and I'll explain. With the testing program, it is still not required. You cannot test children who do not provide consent from their families to get tested. And at this hour, we have very, very few forms citywide in. The one school in southern Brooklyn that has over 1,500 students, only 90 students so far returned their forms. And I'm being told across the city, it's very low. So we have a long way to go in terms of testing. But let me explain the other significant change here today that I'm very worried about. The administration today changed their so-called gold standard of protection, where they testified at my hearing that if one elementary school student tests positive, the entire class has to quarantine. And they said that was the gold standard. The health commissioner stood by that decision. Today, the mayor announced, after a lot of closed last week, a lot of kids quarantined, that now only kids in closest proximity to the child has to quarantine. How are educators supposed to track who comes within 2 feet or so during the course of a day? Kids move around, Delta variant travels. So I'm very worried about this change here today in terms of quarantining. And overall, I think we still have a long way to go to keep our kids and staff truly safe.
Are you concerned, though, at all with the quarantine strategy the way it was, that too many children were being forced to quarantine and miss their lessons, miss school, and maybe fall further back with the way it was before? Or do you feel it was necessary to keep things that way? It sounds like that's the way you feel as far as what you just told us.
Well, the administration could easily address this by telling the public how many DOE students are vaccinated. Currently, there is a vaccine for children or kids 12 and up. There is still no vaccine for children under 12, and I'm hoping with today's news from Pfizer that that will soon come about. But they still have not told us how many students actually are vaccinated. And that could impact operations in middle schools and certainly in high schools. But I still go back, families deserve at this time a remote option, particularly for our youngest children where there is no vaccine. I'm being told that attendance in many communities is still concerningly low because of this very reason. So we have a long way to go to get this right.
Councilmember Traeger, like I just said, you mentioned the remote learning option. This is something people have been calling for a while. Is it too late to put that into effect right now that the school year's already started, or do you feel like there's still time to get it going if they need to have that happen?
Well, there's no question they should have prepared for this months ago. That's when we were calling for it. But at this hour, we still have to make it work. And I can tell you this, there are children who are quarantining. Some are getting remote instruction, some are not. There are thousands of children who have applied for medical accommodation who still have had no instruction at all. So we have a very inequitable, uneven policy for kids who are at home for a variety of reasons. So I think it's never too late to get it right, but they should have prepared for this months ago. There's no question about it.
All right, Councilmember Mark Traeger, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And of course, we'll continue to talk to you as the school situation here continues to develop.